we have here is a Wagoneer Dana 44 out of my friend's YJ. And we're going to be doing some gears in it. This thing, whoever he got the Jeep from, they had these axles already in it. They set up the gears wrong. It basically blew them up, and we've got all new stuff. And I need to help him get his Jeep ready so that when we go to the Badlands next month, he can actually wheel this time instead of being passenger princess. Pay no mind to the case spreader. I just put it on here to test fit it. I picked this up from Vivor. I actually bought this myself. I was able to get by without one when I did my Dana 60, but it would be nice just to make that overall preload nice and tight, and then just, you know, spread it out a little bit with this, make it easier to get it in and out. Kind of stays out of the way so you can still do stuff. But let's get this out of the way because we got some other stuff to do first. Before I even start on the gears and tearing apart the old shim packs, there's some welding that needs done on this axle. I noticed that they left a lot of stuff unwelded, and then some of these welds are kind of potato, and I just want to weld up where whoever built this axle didn't, and maybe reinforce some of these welds because they're really thin. They look kind of cold, and we don't want to be ripping no spring perches off. And then I'm also going to just go ahead and weld the tubes to the housing for them, and then we can get started on this. So I guess step one, getting some paint off. Suppose we'll get these brake lines up and out of the way, just so I don't gotta weld around them. I'm glad that broke free because I only have metric line wrenches and this is a standard. Come on. I already cleaned this axle up, so I don't want to grind and get all the crap in there. He didn't leave me the diff cover, but luckily I've got a Dana 44 diff cover. I just need a couple bolts. You can see a lot of these welds are goobery, incomplete, whatever, so I kind of just cleaned up around. I'm gonna just kind of hit all these a little bit. This is the best looking one on here, but I can tell it's cold. It's not really fused into the tube, so I'm literally just gonna go around all these, give them a little bit of extra, and then I'll heat the whole thing up and do these tubes. I don't want my buddy breaking down on the trail, so we're gonna do it right. We're gonna do it half right anyway. Man, I don't know what I keep snagging. That's the second time. Hopefully the time lapse caught it, but I was just rotating the axle and it just hopped up out of my thing. So I don't know if like a tab or something like hit it and just made it lift up and out of there. Good thing this thing isn't super heavy. Did the best I could going over those old crappy welds just to put some chonkers on there, you know. Housing's nice and warm now, but I'm gonna go ahead and torch this and do the tubes now. Got the old weed burner out. We are gonna cook this thing, try to get it to about, I don't know, 400 and weld the tubes. Got the little laser thermometer, then we'll wrap it in the blanket so it can cool slow. All right, we're just about there. 350, 400. So some people will say to just cover it up now and let it cool slow. Some people will say to post heat it first, then cover it up. I can tell you from experience, when I post heated that axle, right as I was about to finish, bing, I got a crack. It was only like that long. I was able to grind it out and re-weld it later, but maybe I gave it too much post heat. I don't know. So I'm just gonna give it a wee little bit, and then we're gonna wrap it, and then I'm done for the night. Wish I had more than just this one. And that's that. Just doing that heating raised it almost 10 degrees in here. Still only like 80 though, not bad. So when I get back to this to work on it again, probably tomorrow, this will all be cooled. I'll check it for cracks, and then we can start digging through the other stuff. It's kind of an interesting situation. So this thing already had a spool and 513 gears, but it was set up improperly. There was no slinger on here, and basically it cooked the bearing, and some other weird stuff happened, and whatever. He wants to possibly drive this thing on the street, so instead of the spool, he grabbed an open carrier and a Spartan locker. So it's going to be a bunch of stuff we're doing here. Setting up gears on a new carrier and setting up a lunchbox locker. I've only ever done one lunchbox locker, and it's probably been at least 10 years since I did it, so we get to learn some new stuff again. Okay, it's a new day, and stupid trains. So it's a Friday night. This cooled down. There's no cracks anywhere. It turned out okay. I mean, I wasn't going for looks here, but it'll keep these tubes from spinning. So now another little thing I'm gonna do real quick is the brake line was screwed in here, and this is supposed to be the vent, and all that was in there is like a rubber grommet, and then he said the Jeep just has a hose that went inside of it, and that's just gonna equal this filling up with water. So I'm gonna put a barb fitting in here. I got a 1/4 MPT tap, 7/16 drill, and then I'll probably put the small one in there, but then I'll give him both of these so he can pick, you know, whatever size his hose is to put on there. So let's do that real quick. NPT pipe tap, 1/4 inch, which is bigger than 1/4 inch. Gotta love the way pipe is. Of course, none of my tap handles are big enough for this. So I stopped a little short of how far I think I should go, because little tip for tapping pipe thread, the longer you tap this, the bigger the hole gets. And then the further this will seat down in, because the threads are tapered on this too. So if you don't tap it enough, it'll just barely thread in. If you tap it too much, it'll bottom all the way out and never get tight. You kind of want a happy medium. Just check it and see how far I can get by hand, and it's already getting tight. So I'm going to just tap a couple, maybe 2 more turns, call it good. You can see that I got pretty tight. I've got like 3 threads left, so perfection. And I had this covered, but I think I'm just going to give it one more quick cleanup before we start. And actually, you know what, before I do that, I got to knock these races out. Okay, so I just knocked out this outer race. Now we're going to knock out the inner one, and we got to get those shims out of there and measure them all out to see what our baseline's going to be. And there's our weapon of choice.
Is it recording?
Yep.
Okay.
Yahtzee! How many shims? Did you see any other of these shims fall out of there? So even though we're doing a new carrier and a new ring and pinion, I still am trying to get the base lines. I only had 2 shims in there that total 14 thousandths. And now we got to pull this off and measure all these ones right here. And that's part of why this thing blew up, is it didn't have a freaking slinger. Here on a Dana 60, it goes here and rides in there and lets the oil go through that little, just like this passage here, there's another one in there. So yeah, we got all the right stuff, and we just got to do the boring part of measuring. And then I also have to measure those shims off the spool. That's not supposed to happen. So I'm happy that I saved a step, but that's really not supposed to fall off of there. In the meantime, here's all the shims we need. Oh my god. Like my new ring. So I'm trying to teach my daughter how to measure preload shims, but she's just not that interested, so she gets to hold a camera. But, you know, having one of these is super awesome. You can also do it with one of these, but these are more accurate. So we got 6 shims here, and they're very beat up and thin looking, except for this thick boy.
Damn, boy, he's thick! Boy, that's a thick-ass boy! Damn!
This one is 16? Hold on, 0. Oh my god, no. 25 plus 6. 31 thousandths. I'm trying here, guys. You know, this is just like the most boring part ever, but it'll save you a little bit of headache. 4. We're calling it 4. Yeah, this just goes on and on. We're gonna be breaking out this bearing puller from Vevor. This thing is so freaking sweet, and if you're trying to do this job with one of those crappy clamshell pullers, just go buy one of these. They're cheap, and if you use this code, you can save like 5 or 10%. I don't know. Worth a shot, and I get like 50 cents out of it or something if you do. It's pretty simple how it works. This impact is so weak. This was like the first one I ever bought. It's like the low torque one, and it's like so whippy, but should get the job done. Boom, baby. So this side we've got one thick and one thin. Same on that side, one thick, one thin. This one's a 30, so 50 thousandths on that side. So now we've got all our baseline stuff, and I'm actually gonna start. Next step I'm gonna do is install this Spartan locker in this new open carrier, and once that's done, then we can start, you know, building some basic shim packs. I'll probably put the same starting stack under that inner race, but before we do any of that, I need to make setup bearings and maybe turn this into a setup race. It is chewed up, but the bearing rolls smooth in it. It's not catching it or anything, and it's just gonna make this so much easier, being able to take it apart, put it back together really easy and stuff. It's getting kind of late, so I'm just gonna throw this locker in the carrier and call it a night. It's been a while since I've done one of these lunchbox lockers, but they're really pretty simple from what I remember. Man, that does not look like there's enough room there, Johnny. What in the what? Not even close. It's like a 1/4 inch too narrow. Oh, jeez.
Oh, jeez. Hey, what's going on, fellas? Oh, jeez, man. Nothing, man. We're just hanging out and stuff.
Not sure what's going on here, but this little guy just doesn't want to sit down in there far enough. So you can even... this slot right here where the pin would go through. See how it's like too high? There's no way the pin will even go through there. I gotta see what the heck. Dana 44 HD 30 splines, Dana 44 HD only. So I had a bit of a problem with the locker. Turns out he ordered a Dana 44 HD, which I guess is for the 8 lug axles. I looked it up and there's a 19 spline, a 30 spline, and an HD. Long story short, it was like a 1/4 inch too wide to fit in here, but we can still set up the gears without that in there, and the new one should be here in like 2 days. Gonna work on making the setup bearings. The easiest way I found to hog out the inside of those, since the bearings are like hardened metal, the carbide bits don't really want to take that much, but these little sanding drums, they do the trick pretty good. You just check it every once in a while, see if it fits. We're just going for a slip fit that's still snug, but not tight. Been at this for about 7 minutes or so, and boy, this thing's hot, but it drops on, but sometimes it doesn't want to come off, and sometimes it gets stuck. So I'll probably just take one more pass out of it, call it good. You don't want it like so loose that it flops around, but being able to just pull it off, that's where it's at. Of course, now it's gonna fight me. Got this race. I did the same thing. I ground the outside of this. I was a little iffy using this because it has damage. However, you put it in there and this rolls smooth as can be, so it's not affecting the rollers at all, so we can use this for setup. I'm gonna go throw this in the freezer to make that ring gear easier to come on, and while that sits in there, I gotta measure all these. I like to just take a marker, write on them, arrange them in order, so when I'm looking for shims, it's just easy to find what you need. These are super jagged. They got rust on them. They got like jagged points that I'm gonna have to file down, and I don't know if you can see that, but that like catches your skin. It's like these are not the best quality shims, and they're honestly not that big of a variety here, so I might have to use some of the old ones too. Really not very impressed with these shims. There's nothing small. 10 was the smallest on all 3 sizes, so I got no 5s, no 3s. Those ones were all rusty. There was only 5 preload shims, so like I can't even make any of my numbers. My baseline was 52. The closest I can get really is 58. I guess I could do 56 with this, but I like to start high on these. Whatever, if I have to, I'll use the old ones. I almost forgot our baffle. This axle didn't have one, and this kit didn't come with one. I ordered it. That measures as a 15, so that's basically leaves us just as limited on this pinion depth. I'm gonna go with 2 15s and make it 30. Our baseline was 28, so it's pretty close. I like how 1 minute this thing feels too loose, and the next minute it's goddamn stuck in there. As I was saying, 30 down in the hole. One of the things I find super weird is that the slinger runs clear out here after you put the bearing on. It goes slinger, and then you put the seal in and throw the yoke on, and that's because there's this little passage right here. So when the ring gear slings oil up through, it comes through this and out that hole in there. See that light right there? Slings it into this little cubby. The baffle keeps it from running out, but then something slings it out and into this one too. There's a hole right there that connects to right here. It seems super weird, but the diagram shows it on the outside between the seal and the outer cone, so that's where it goes. So it just like rides right here. So stupid that these shims won't fit through the baffle. So I went ahead and bored out this outer bearing to make it like a setup bearing too, just because it's kind of a pain to tap it on there and then have to pull it off 3 or 4 times to check it. So at least till I get it close, I'm just going to use this one. And then this little guy goes there. Then the seal, which we ain't doing yet. And then the yoke. I am going to use the old nut on that. Oh my gosh. What is wrong with your yoke, Ron? Well, I did have another Dana 44 yoke, but it has a bigger U-joint and a smaller sealing surface, but it's still having the same exact problem. It only wants to go like a quarter of the way on there. So I guess I need to check the splines on that new pinion. It slides all the way on to the old pinion, so it's got to just be something with that new one. Well, I'm just going to see if it'll pull in with the old nut. Every so often I'm going to check it and make sure the pinion bearings aren't getting too tight. Let's go see what we got. So I need a 3/8 up to half, but the only one I had I welded to the 3/4 one. So this is going from 3/8 to 3/4, and then from 3/4 down to half. A little bit ghetto, but it should work. Picked this up at a garage sale the other day. I figured it might be more accurate than the beam one that I had. It's sitting between 20 and 25, which is like pretty sure right where we want it. Alright, the thing I just looked up said 14 to 19 inch-pounds, but if you're using a new setup, to set it to 25. Good enough for now. We're gonna end up having to adjust this anyway, because anytime I change the depth on the shims behind the race, like if I have to add 5 thousandths to that, I have to add 5 thousandths back there to keep it the same. So it's gonna get played with, but we're in the ballpark. Now I'm gonna go get the carrier out of the freezer, and we're gonna throw the ring gear on, but I'm gonna use the old bolts because that locker's not here yet, so the ring gear will have to come back off. So these are stretch bolts, so I'm gonna save the new ones for final assembly. Kind of sucks to have to do it twice, but I don't have time to wait around on it. I gotta get this done. Look at that, it just sits right down. Can't get much easier than that. Some of them thread right in, and some are being a dick. For ring gear side, we had 50. So let's see if we can make 50. 20, 40, 50, and a setup bearing. On the other side, we had 33, 311s. Sticking together like the pages of the Sears catalog in 1992. So the first thing we're going for here is just overall preload. If this just falls right in, it's no bueno. And you know what? Bearing races would help. The only thing I don't like about doing these setup bearings out of the old ones is you never know if the new ones are, if everything's the same thickness. On my Dana 60, I ended up having to add a couple thousandths to each side because it got loose once I put the real ones on there, but it gets you close. Ooh, it feels... definitely feels snug. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Let me go get a dead blow. Nice and snug. I have zero backlash. Zero backlash means we need more shim here and less there. So I gotta pull it out and move some shims across. Of course, it doesn't want to pry out of there, so we're going to try out the case spreader that I picked up. Ooh, there we go. Hell, I think what helped me more than the spreader was just having this thing to pry against. So I just pulled a 10 thousandths off this side. We're moving it to this side to try to shove that ring gear over. Got a feeling that's not going to be enough, but we'll see where it gets us.
So if you haven't figured it out by now, this process is mostly just a test of your patience.
Dang. Still no backlash. Wow. Okay, we'll just keep doing this. So now I've moved 20 over. I moved 10 over first, that didn't work, and then actually the second time I had to rearrange it. I moved 10 over, but only added 9. So I'm like 1/1000th less just because I thought it was tighter than it needed to be. And now we're finally like, we have backlash, but it's like 2,000. It's so little. I'll get the thing out and read it, but I know that it's nowhere near enough. So right now I have a 20 and an 11 in there. So let's say if I wanted to make it like 25 or 26, I can do a 16 and a 10. So right now I have 31, 52. So now I need to make this side 57. Yeah, 36, 47, 57. Guess I can't complain too much so far. I've been able to pretty much make everything I need. Try this again. Closer. Don't know if it's enough, but it's close enough we can put the caps on and find out. That way. Alright, my setup here's a little unconventional, but let's see if I can get y'all zoomed in on that. 6 thousandths. I believe we want 4 to 9. So we can paint this sucker. Coast side looks good. Wow, that's pretty impressive for a first run. It favors this side a little bit, but the depth actually looks pretty good. Look at the coast side. You know, I could sit here and play grab ass with this, but it's a trail rig. Maybe I could get it to just go down in there a little bit more, but it's not like we're all the way up at the edge of the tooth. We're not all the way at the bottom, other than it just being a little bit out here. Been looking at this a little closer, and even though it never comes up and touches the face, it does favor like the face or the top of the gear a little more than the bottom. There's a little bit of room to move it down, so it's late. I'm not gonna mess with it tonight, but I think I might add a couple thousandths behind the pinion, move it out a little bit. I'll add the same amount to the preload so it stays where it's at, and if I do that, my backlash will shrink up a little bit though, so I might have to play with that too. But that's it for tonight. See, if you look, this is examples of it being too far away, and you can see they like all seem to ride up all the way up to the tip. Mine is more like that one. There's a gap there, so I think that it's kind of like this one where it's close but it's not touching, and that says acceptable. So technically, I think we're good, but I'm gonna see if I can just make it a little bit better. So I added 5 thousandths behind the pinion race, and then I did the same thing on the preload side, because just to keep it equal. My preload's actually a little tight. I'll probably loosen that up a little bit later. One thing I forgot to note, I got this other dial caliper, and I forgot I had this magnetic base, and this one actually fits it. My other one is like too small and it wouldn't clamp down in here, so makes this a whole lot easier. About 5.5 to 6, so that definitely tightened us up a bit. We can move one more shim over that way to shove it away, and that might correct our coming off the side problem here. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and repaint this and just see where we're at before I do that. That helped. Moved her down a little bit, and it moved her in a little bit. I think I'm gonna move just a little bit more shim over here. Alright, here's where we're at now. Man, it's hard to see on the camera screen, so we're still shaded that way a bit. This side's looking pretty good. Been really struggling getting this out without the case spreader. Not even the spreading helps, but having that bar there so I can pry on this easier is really what's been making it easier. Fuck this. Makes that so much easier. Let's see, I have 26 and 57. If I can move 5, I'll move 5. If not, I'll do whatever I can. So I'll just trade out this 11 for 16. Bam, bam. And that's that.
Oh boy, I'm being put to work.
Holy crap, we are at 10 now. I believe he told me 8 to 10, so we'll go with it. Freaking Bob Rossnet over here. Got a pretty little ring gear. Happy little ring gear. Alright, let's see what we got. Did I make it better, or did I shoot myself in the foot? Oh yeah, it's still off the end a little bit, but not that bad. I moved too much over. I moved 5 over. I should have probably just moved like 3. So I moved 5 from that side over, and things are definitely starting to come this way. That's pretty good and centered, but it's really, really close to this edge. I think you guys get the idea. I'm just going to keep playing with this until I get it closer, and then I'll bring it back. Kind of gained a little here and lost a little there, so I think I just need to keep going at it. Alright, I think I just about got this where I want it. I added another 5 to the pinion depth to bring it in a little closer, and things are looking much better. Still shaded that way a bit, but looking pretty good. My height's good. That side looks really good too. Only problem I've got right now is the backlash is 10.5. I'm shooting for like 8, maybe 9. Tomorrow, the lunchbox locker will get here, so hopefully I can get this buttoned up, get the real bearings put on there, and I'll have to pop this ring gear back off to do that locker, but whatever. Okay, I messed around with it a little bit. I moved 4 from one side back to the other. It was too much. Then I moved 2 back. So my final numbers is 60 and 23. That got me just dialed. About 7.5. Close enough. I'm gonna pull this back apart, put all the real bearings and races and stuff in it, and tomorrow the locker comes, but I got softball tomorrow, so I don't know if I'll get her done or not. Oh boy, I figured this was going to happen. I don't know if you could tell in the time lapse, that was much harder to push that in. I actually had to crank on the case spreader, got it to drop in, but as I expected, my backlash has gone to shit, like 3. I think I just need to remove some total shims from the thing, and since I kind of need it to open up a little bit, if I remove just like 3 thousandths or so from this side, it should open this up a bit, maybe 4 thousandths, and also make this a little easier to come in and out, because this is going to be a bear to get out of here now. Now that I got the actual race and the actual outer pinion bearing on there, it tightened up quite a bit. It's sitting right at 30, which is just a bit high. I think it's a good stopping point though. I haven't even had dinner yet, and yeah, we'll figure this out tomorrow. Okay y'all, it's the next night. The Spartan locker came in. We're getting ready to put that in. Last night I put all the real bearings on and everything got super tight. So what I did, I just pulled 4 thousandths from this side. I did not move it. I just pulled it out. And now it was a little better to drop in. Still tight like it needs to be. And the backlash, it opened up to 6. I was shooting for like 8, 7, 8, but 6 is gonna work. We're not done, but I think we're done changing shims. Everything's where it's gonna stay. This has to come back out so I can stuff that locker in there. Oh, you know what? My preload was still a little snug too, so I think I might just throw one more little shim in the preload. And this is what the final pattern looks like. Coast side looking pretty good-ish. Drive side, everything's pretty well centered. It's not way out here anymore. It's not too high, not too low. Just nice and nice big oval right in the middle. So I decided to check this preload again just to see, and it's actually sitting at about 25. I don't know if I'll be able to get this to focus on it. It's actually just a hair over. It's maybe like 27. The thing I read said new bearings set to 25, used bearings set to 15. I'm pretty happy with that. I do believe, I don't know if I mentioned this before, I believe this is a YJ Dana 35 yoke. I don't see a number on it, but it's 1310, and it's got the bigger snout on it. And the Dana 44, like the seal that came with this, and the old 44 yoke I have, both have a smaller, like a 1.5 snout. This is like 1.8 or 1.85 or something, and I looked up the Dana 35 seal is 1.84, so I've got one on hand, and I need to see if it'll go in here without like falling in. The outside diameter looks just a smidge smaller, but hopefully that works. Ron had given me this seal and he said it worked, but he had already pushed it in once and then pulled it back out. And the, you can see the spring is damaged right there. So I really don't want to reuse this. I don't know exactly what it's for, but hopefully this one will work. Well, let's see if this thing is the right size. Oh no, damn it. It just kind of falls in there. I was hoping that this brown rubber would grab, but it's not. So I really got to figure out what this other seal is. See if I can find a part number on it or something. So I found an easier solution. I started looking through my pile of yokes. This is the one that came on there. It's the one that's wrong. I can't find a seal, and this thing has a number on it. It's like Russian. I don't know where he got this, but I can't pull anything up. I can't use it. So I just found out that Dana 44 rear has the same as Dana 30 front. So I went out in the driveway and I got a Dana 30 out there and I pulled this one off of it. Perfect fit. Matches the seal that came in the kit. Matches everything. It's done. It's torqued. It's just done. I thought this was it, but it's a maybe front transfer case output or something. I don't know. I was going to give him this one, which also would have worked, but it was 1330 and his drive shaft's 1310. So the pinion is done, it's dusted, it's Loctited, it's torqued, it's finished. And now, before I go to bed, I'm gonna throw the locker in there. Alright, let's throw this locker in there real quick. These things are stupid easy. You got basically these side gears. I think they call these drivers. There's little spacers in there. I think that's the way they go. Cross pin, and then you got these 4 little pistons, 4 little springs, and then there's little pins that hold them in, and it's pretty straightforward. Although, by saying that, I may have just effed myself. We already started to put the last one together until I realized it was all too wide. So pretty much every one of these little guys, you just stuff a spring inside of it, put it down in there so it's like ring. And you take one of these, there's little holes in the end, just compress it in there, jam that in there, it holds it. Do that 4 times. Instead of a bolt for the cross pin, I just have a roll pin. Drop a little side gear in there, fish one of these through there, somewhat on there. And I'll put the other side gear up in there and hold it up in there. And then fish this other one through here. Now I believe we gotta pull these roll pins out, and as soon as that happens they spring together and push this back apart. There, now they just all clicked in, and then you just line this hole up with that hole. It's just a matter of working this daggone thing through there. And there it is. I'm going to have to mess with it a little bit to get this hole to line up perfect and then drive this roll pin through it. Got some punches for just this very thing. Roll pin punches. Hey, let's hit our hand. That would be just perfect. Fuck the guy that has to get that out, right? They don't make it easy. They put a hole on the backside and you have to have a super long roll pin punch to be able to drive it back out. It got a little jammed there. There's 2 holes in this cross pin. One's bigger than the other, and I thought I needed the tighter one. That is not the case. You need the looser one. Fortunately, there's no way to really know if it made it into this side of the carrier. I don't know. Maybe I gotta drive this down in a little farther. Good enough. By the way, it did say to gap this from 140 to 170. And I am at 158. So we're good. It has been a long day. It was a crappy day at work. Softball game. I'm done. Alright, it's all back together, so let's throw some brakes on here. Ron went ahead and put some new shoes on these bad boys. I don't know why these bolts aren't just like pressed in or welded in. Thought about welding them on there, but I didn't. Next time she asks you, where'd you learn how to do that thing with your hands? That's right here. I feel one finger spinner. And they conveniently place a hole in that axle shaft so you can spin it around. Get to these mamma jammas. Last thing I'm gonna do, I'll probably spray some paint on here where I made it bare. I gotta throw the brake lines back on. I'm gonna make sure I can get some bolts into those holes on the yoke because that Dana 30 in my driveway was out of a flood Jeep. It sat underwater. The whole thing's pretty rusty, and I don't want him to break a bolt off in there, so I'll probably run a tap through it. 1/4 28 is the size. Seems fine to me. Well, I forgot to record that last part. I just threw a spare diff cover off on there to keep it clean. Threw these brake lines back on there. Everything is clearing, nothing's rubbing. It's all tight. He had these hose clamps on there, so I put them back on there. Got a nice gap where I tapped this earlier and put this vent. Man, it just barely cleared, but this is how the block was before to clear. There's a rubber grommet in there, and he had a tube with like a male nipple that just pressed into that rubber grommet, and I was like, hey, why don't you let me do this so that way water doesn't fill your diff up. This thing is done, my friends. It's been quite the rewarding project. I just gave it a quick little dusting of paint just to, you know, make it look kind of better. Painting an axle is kind of like putting a sticker on your rig. It's like instant 4 horsepower. So I guess we'll find out how well it works here in a couple weeks. Badlands Off-Road Park. Before we go to Badlands, the next project, the YJ. I don't want to go wheeling for 4 days without a front locker. I'm done with it. I was gonna throw that spool in there. Check out my website if you guys want to get a hat or shirt or sticker or something. Remember guys, don't be scared to pick up a wrench, and I hope to see you on the trail. Bye.